Imagine standing on a foundation you believe is solid rock, only to realize far too late that it was actually shifting sand. That is the terrifying reality for thousands of men who buy into a polished image rather than a person's true soul. We live in an era of curated identities where people are experts at impression management, and nowhere is this more dangerous than in your own home. You look at the woman beside you and see a supportive partner, but you have to ask yourself a hard, uncomfortable question. Is she actually loyal, or is she just an incredible actress? Most men never stop to consider that the affection they receive might be a calculated performance designed to keep them compliant, providing, and blind. You see her smile, you hear her, "I love you," and you assume those are markers of a deep connection. But the truth is that words are easy and attention can be faked. If you don't learn how to look past the stage lights, you risk losing years of your life to a ghost, a person who was never truly there for you, but only there for what you could do for her. The most brutal part of this deception is that it doesn't look like a lie. It looks like a perfect relationship. You've been conditioned to think that if things feel smooth, they must be real. You mistake her being nice for her being kind, and you confuse her being present for her being committed. But character isn't found in the big, loud, romantic gestures or the sweet whispers she saves for your birthday. Those are the easy moments. Anyone can play the part of a loving partner when the sun is shining and the rewards are rolling in. Real character is silent. It exists in the dark, in the moments when you aren't looking, when she has no audience to impress, and when she feels like she has enough leverage to finally stop trying. If her respect for you is tied to how much you're giving her, then it isn't respect, it's a fee. If her loyalty only exists when you're in the room to enforce it, then it isn't loyalty. It's just a temporary costume. You have to understand that when a woman is performing, she is managing your perception of her to maintain her lifestyle or her security. She knows exactly which buttons to press to make you feel like the hero, the provider, or the one. But while you're falling in love with the character she's playing, she is secretly detached, waiting for the moment she no longer needs the role. This is why so many men feel blindsided when a relationship ends. They feel like their partner turned into a stranger overnight. The reality is that she didn't change. The play just ended. The curtains closed because she got what she wanted or found a better stage. By the time you realize the woman you loved was an illusion, the damage is already done. You've traded your youth, your resources, and your emotional health for a scripted performance. This is why you must become a student of reality rather than a fan of the show. You have to look for the glitches in the performance, those small, quiet moments where the mask slips and you see the person behind the lines. Does she treat you with the same dignity when you have nothing to offer? Does she protect your name when you aren't around to defend it? If you aren't looking at what she does in the silence, you are essentially gambling with your future. You cannot build a life with a performance. You need a partner whose character is stitched into her very being, not one who staples it on when she needs a favor. Stop listening to the script and start watching the patterns, because the truth isn't in what she says to your face, it's in who she becomes the second you turn your back. The danger you face in a relationship isn't usually a sudden, explosive betrayal that you can see coming from a mile away. It is the slow, silent erosion of your standards, caused by the trap of comfort. Most men are destroyed by the good times because comfort acts like a sedative. It softens your guard, blurs your vision, and makes you overlook the cracks in the foundation. You have been socialized to judge the quality of your partnership by what I call the weather. This means you are looking at the daily forecast. Is she smiling today? Was the weekend fun? Did she send a sweet text this morning? While those things feel good, they are surface level metrics that tell you absolutely nothing about the actual structural integrity of the woman you are with. You are measuring the temporary conditions of the atmosphere instead of auditing the permanent climate of her character. The weather changes every hour, but the climate is who she is at her core when the storm eventually hits. You have to realize that in ideal conditions, anyone can put on a world class performance. It is easy for a woman to be affectionate, supportive, and kind when life is easy. The bills are paid, and there is no friction between you. In those moments, affection is cheap because it costs her nothing to give it. This is where the psychological trap springs shut. You start to believe that this version of her, the fair weather version, is the definitive truth. You see her taking accountability for a small mistake, and you think she's noble. But you're failing to realize that accountability is easy to fake when the stakes are low. You are grading her on an open book test during the easiest semester of her life. If you base your security on how smooth things feel, you aren't building a life. You are just enjoying a temporary truce with reality. The mistake most men make is choosing chemistry over consistency. And in doing so, they choose a fleeting feeling over a stable future. Chemistry is a state of being. It's a vibe, a spark, a rush of dopamine. It is high energy, but low substance. Character, however, is a standard. It is the set of non negotiable principles that a woman lives by, even when she's tired, even when she's angry, and especially when she has nothing to gain from being nice to you. When you are blinded by the warmth of a relationship, you stop looking for the markers of reliability. You forget that warmth can be turned on and off like a faucet. If she is only wonderful when things are going her way, then you aren't with a partner. You are with a passenger who will jump overboard the moment the water gets choppy. To escape this trap, you must stop being a fan of the performance and start being an auditor of the pattern. You need to look past the curated weekends and the sweet whispers and start asking what remains when the comfort is stripped away. Does she still respect you when there is a disagreement? Does she still protect the relationship when she is frustrated? Most men ignore the red flags during the comfort phase because they don't want to ruin the mood. But that is exactly when you need to be the most observant. If you allow yourself to be softened by the ease of the present, you will be completely defenseless when the future demands a woman of substance. Never mistake a pleasant environment for a proven character. One is a luxury, the other is a necessity for your survival. The first true test of a woman's character isn't how she treats you when you're sitting right across from her at dinner. It's how she handles her freedom the second you are out of sight. Most men make the mistake of thinking that giving a woman space is just a gift or a sign of a healthy relationship. But in reality, freedom is the ultimate truth serum. It is the stage where the performance ends and the mask finally falls. When you are around, it is easy for her to play the role of the loyal, devoted partner because there is an immediate reward for doing so. But what happens when the audience leaves? What happens when she is 1,000 miles away, or out with friends, or simply sitting alone with her phone in the middle of the night? That is where loyalty stops being an outfit she puts on to impress you and starts being a code she either lives by or ignores. You have to understand that true integrity isn't a public display, it is a private choice. If her loyalty only glows when the spotlight of your attention is on her, but starts to flicker and fade the moment she is unmonitored, you aren't dealing with commitment. You are dealing with a branding exercise. You need to look closely at whether she treats her unmonitored moments as an open bar for outside validation. In today's world, attention is the most addictive currency on the planet, and a woman without a solid internal code will seek it wherever she can find it, the moment you aren't there to provide it. This doesn't always look like a major betrayal. Often, it's a series of micro cheats and small doors left cracked open. It's the way she interacts with other men when she thinks you'll never know. It's the late night replies to innocent DMs, the subtle seeking of compliments from strangers, or the way she hides her phone the second you walk into the room. If she requires constant supervision to remain loyal, then she was never loyal to begin with. She was just being managed. Real loyalty is stitched into her identity. It doesn't change based on her location or who she is with. A woman of character doesn't see your absence as an opportunity to test the waters or collect backup validation. She sees it as a time to uphold the standard she has set for herself and the relationship. Many men get blinded by public loyalty. They love the way she brags about them on social media, the way she holds their arm in front of friends, or the way she plays the part of the perfect girlfriend at family events. But you have to realize that this is often just performance art. It's easy to look committed when people are watching and clapping. The real audit of her soul happens when the door is closed, the lights are off, and the world isn't looking. Does she still respect your boundaries when there is no risk of getting caught? Does she still protect the sanctity of what you've built when she's tempted by a new spark of attention? If her behavior shifts depending on the audience in the room, she is a part time actor, not a full time partner. She is wearing loyalty like a necklace, something shiny to show off at dinner, rather than carrying it in her heart like a compass. The freedom audit is about observing her baseline behavior. You aren't playing detective or becoming a stalker. You are simply paying attention to the patterns of how she moves through the world when she is independent. A woman with a true code of integrity doesn't feel restricted by commitment. She feels aligned by it. She doesn't need you to watch her because she is watching herself. Her self respect is what keeps her honest, not her fear of your reaction. If you notice that she treats her freedom as a hall pass to act like a single woman, then you need to stop listening to the sweet words she says to your face and start believing the actions she takes in the dark. Integrity isn't about what she does during the highlight reel, it's about what she repeats in the silence. If she isn't solid when she's free, she will never be stable when things get hard. Don't settle for a woman who needs a babysitter. Find a woman who is her own goalkeeper. The second silent test is arguably the most brutal and revealing of all: the utility shift. This is the moment when the power dynamic changes and she realizes she no longer depends on you for her survival, her status, or her emotional stability. You have to understand that many people, not just women, but people in general, are capable of faking a deep soul level connection when they are in a position of need. When you are the one providing the roof over her head, the emotional shoulder to lean on, or the social ladder she's climbing, her kindness is often just a transaction. She is essentially paying you in affection and respect in exchange for the security you provide. It's a survival mechanism, not a sign of love. You feel like her hero, her rock, and her anchor, but the reality might be much colder. You're simply a bridge she is crossing to get to a better version of her own life. The only way to know the difference is to watch what happens to her attitude the exact moment she reaches the other side of that bridge and finds her own footing. This test is sharper because it strips away all the incentives for her to be nice to you. Watch her behavior closely when she gets that big promotion, builds her own high status social circle, or finally achieves the financial independence she's been working toward. When she no longer needs your bank account to feel secure or your constant emotional labor to stay sane, the mask of the appreciative partner often begins to slip. If her deep respect suddenly turns into frequent irritation, or if her once constant warmth becomes cold background noise, you are seeing her true form. In this scenario, she didn't change because of her success. She simply stopped pretending because the contract was fulfilled. The man who was once her everything suddenly feels like an inconvenience or a burden because he is no longer serving a specific utility in her life. If she treats your presence as optional or annoying once she has her own power, it means she never valued your essence. She only valued your output. You have to be direct with yourself and audit the temperature of the relationship during these transitions of independence. A woman of character and true substance doesn't rewrite history just because her circumstances improved. If she truly loves you, her respect for you is rooted in who you are as a man, not in what you can do for her. When she wins, she wants you by her side to celebrate because you are her partner, not because you are her provider. However, a woman driven by convenience will view her newfound independence as a release from the obligation of being kind to you. You'll notice she cancels plans more often, mocks your opinions, or becomes too busy for the intimacy you once shared. This shift is the ultimate mirror of her soul. It proves that while you were investing your heart, she was merely managing a resource. The hardest truth for a man to swallow is realizing he wasn't an anchor in her life. He was just a tool in her kit. A tool is something you use until the job is done, and then you put it away or replace it with a better one. An anchor is something that stays with the ship, regardless of the weather or the destination. You need to look at the silence after her needs are met and see if the love remains. If she still honors you, supports you, and treats you with the same warmth when she has made it on her own, then you have found a woman whose character is deeper than her circumstances. But if the gratitude disappears the moment the dependency ends, do not make the mistake of begging for her attention. That shift is your exit cue. It is the clearest sign that you are never being loved for your soul. You are being hired for your service. Recognize the utility shift for what it is, a moment of total clarity that saves you from wasting the rest of your life on someone who is only there for the ride. To truly master your relationships, you must understand the massive, invisible canyon that separates being loved from being leveraged. This is the core difference between a partnership that will sustain you for a lifetime and a transaction that will leave you bankrupt. Love is a permanent state of the soul. It is an internal commitment that actually grows stronger when the external perks start to disappear. When a woman truly loves you, her respect for you isn't tied to the balance of your bank account, the status of your job, or how much you can do for her on a Tuesday afternoon. Love remains consistent because it is rooted in who you are, not what you provide. Convenience, however, is a predatory imitation of love. It looks like the real thing. It feels like the real thing when times are good, but it is entirely transactional. Convenience thrives as long as you are filling a role, whether that is the provider, the emotional therapist, or the social safety net. But the second those roles are no longer required, or the second you hit a rough patch and stop producing results, convenience dries up instantly. The woman who was once your biggest fan suddenly becomes your harshest critic, not because you changed, but because your utility to her has expired. Understanding this divide doesn't require you to become a detective, run complex psychological experiments, or set traps to catch her in a lie. Life is going to provide all the tests you need. You just have to be brave enough to stop rewarding surface level effort and start looking at the deeper patterns. You have to realize that nice is not the same as loyal. A woman can be incredibly pleasant, affectionate, and fun to be around while she is benefiting from the relationship. But that is just her paying the rent for the lifestyle or security you provide. To find the truth, you have to look at what remains when the rent isn't due. You have to ask yourself, does she stay aligned with your values when there is no reward for doing so? Does she treat you with the same high level of respect when you aren't in a position to solve her problems or hand her a resource? If she is only on your team when you are winning, she isn't a teammate. She's a fan. And fans leave the stadium the moment the team starts losing.